Hello students, welcome to online tutorial of database management system. My name is Bhavna Singh. I am working as an assistant professor in St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management. In today's session, we will discuss about the database management. So let's get started. Students, in today's session, we will discuss about these topics of Unit 2. The first one is data independence with its types like logical data independence and physical data independence. Then we will discuss about types of database systems like centralized and distributed database. And next we'll discuss about the client server architectures with its types. So let us first understand what is data independence. Data independence refers characteristics of being able to modify the schema at one level of the database system without altering the schema at the next higher level. That means database is a multi-layered system, as we have already discussed in the previous sessions also, and we have discussed about the three layers of database like the internal level and the conceptual level and the external level. So the database is designed in the multi-layer system because database, it contains a lot of data. For example, it stores data about the data, that is the metadata, and so that we can easily locate and retrieve the data easily. That is why we maintain the data dictionary. And as the DBMS expands, it needs to change over time so that it can be satisfy the requirements of the users. And if the system is not multi-layer, then it will be very much difficult for us to update or to modify a set of data once it is stored in the database. So therefore, if the entire data is dependent, then it will be a very much tedious and highly complex job for us. That is why we have designed the DBMS as a multi-layered system, and it follows a layered architecture so that whenever we want to change the data at one layer, then it does not affect the data at the another level. And this concept, this changing data at one level and it is not affecting the data at the another level, is known as the data independence. That means the data is independent between the layers. Now let us discuss first type of the data independence, that is logical data independence. Logical data independence is the ability to modify the conceptual schema without having alteration in external schemas or application programs. See, the logical level, that is the conceptual level, it stores about the information like how data is managed inside and what are the various tables inside the database, how many columns are there, how many rows are there, what is the name of the tables, and what are the various data types that we have used, what are the various constraints that we have applied on that relations. So all these information about the data inside the database, it is stored in the conceptual level, that is the logical level. So this logical data independence, it liberalizes itself, it frees itself from the actual data storage that is stored on the hard disk. And if we do some changes on table format, or if we do some changes on the column, or if we add some more column, or if we add some rows or some columns, then it should not change the data residing on the disk. That means it should not change the storage, and for that we need not to write the application programs again and again, so that it will be appear for the external views. So the logical independence, it is occurring between the conceptual schema and the external schema, that is the external views. And any changes that we do in this conceptual level, it does not affect any of the other levels. Then the second type is physical data independence. Physical data independence is the ability to modify the physical schema without having alteration to the conceptual schema or application programs. See, physical schema means that is the data which is internally stored in the form of you can say bits, and conceptual schema, it represents the data in the form of tables, in the form of relations. So this physical independence, it shows that if we made any changes to the physical data, then it does not impact the overall schema or the logical schema. For example, if we want to change or if we want to upgrade the storage system, like we have replaced the hard disk with some external storage devices or some secondary storage devices, then in that case it should not have any impact on the logical data, like if we shift the database from hard disk to the secondary storage, then it does not mean that the structure of the table will be changed or number of columns will be deleted or number of columns will be added. So this change or this shifting of database from hard disk to secondary storage devices, it should not impact, it should not affect the table, it should not affect the conceptual data or the logical data. Now we will discuss about the various types of database systems. We have two types of database systems, that is the centralized database system and the distributed database system. So in the next slides we will discuss about each one of them in detail. Now we will discuss the first type of database system, that is the centralized database. Centralized database is a database that is located, stored and maintained in a single location. That means all the information, all the data, it is stored at a single position, at a centralized location, and all the users from different locations, they can access this data via the communication networks or the communication links. And this type of data, it contains some application procedures that will help these users to access the data even from the remote location. For example, many big companies, or you can say the different universities, they all maintain a centralized database, and the different colleges or the branches of that company, they can have the access to the centralized database via the communication network. For example, they can access this database by a registration number that is provided by the application programs to these users, and it will help them to keep a track and record of the data usage. So this centralized database, it is accessed by different users. In this diagram also you can see that there is a one centralized database, and it is getting accessed by the client 1 machine, client 2 machine, client 3 machines. All these machines, they can have the access to the information that is stored in the centralized database, and all these machines, they are connected via the communication network. Now these are the advantages of centralized database. The first one is less data redundancy. Redundancy means duplication of data. As we are maintaining the single storage, or as we are maintaining all the entire information at a single storage, so there is no point of redundancy, or there is no point of duplication of data, because we are storing all the information at one place. And if we maintain any updation or any modification, that too will occur at one place only, so it increases the data integrity also, because we don't have data scattered at multiple locations, and all the data is stored at one place. So we are applying all the constraints, and we are applying all the updation to this single storage only, so this will efficiently increase the data integrity. Then the next is, it is easy to use due to its simplicity of having only a single database design. Therefore it is very much easy for the users to use it. Then the next is more data security, as there is a single data storage location, and there is only one possible place from which the database, it can be attacked, or sets of data that can be stolen, or you can say the data can be tampered with. So in this case it is more secure. Now, along with many advantages, this centralized database, it also have a certain amount of limitations, like it has limited access by more than one people, you can say, to the same set of data or to the same information, because there is only one copy of it, and it is maintained in a single location. So this will a little bit difficult for more than one people to access the same amount of data at the same time, and sometimes it leads to a decrease in the efficiency of the system also. Then the second one is, it is dependent on the network connectivity. That means if we have a slower internet connection, if we then in that case it will take a longer time, or you can say it will take a longer access time than the normal. Then the third one we have, it does not have any fault tolerant setup, because all the data within the database will be lost if there is no fault tolerant setup, or if the hardware failure occurs or some power failure occurs. So in that case all the data will be lost. Now this figure shows the working of centralized database. See what happens when a user, it generates a query with the help of a structured query language from the computer system. Then it will passed to the application program, and then from the application program this request is generated to the DBMS and it is received by the database management system. Then this request is processed by the database management system, and after getting that request it communicates with the database in order to generate the result. And when it gets the result or when it extracts information from the database, then after that it communicates with the application program, and then the result is displayed in the screen of the user. So this is how the entire working is occurring, or entire working takes place inside the centralized database. Now we will discuss the second type of database, that is the distributed database. In distributed database systems, data is distributed among different database systems of an organization. That means it is the opposite of centralized database. In centralized database, what is happening? The entire data or all the data is stored at one single location only. But in case of distributed database, the data is not stored at one place. It is distributed at various sites of an organization, and these sites, they communicate each other with the help of communication networks, you can say, or communication links, and these links, they help them to access the distributed data easily. So in case of distributed data, we are not storing the information at one single location only, but various portions of the database, they are stored in multiple locations along with their application procedures which help them to execute the process. And as you can see in this diagram also, there are multiple sites, they are having their entire own database, and all these sites, they are communicating with each other with the help of the communication network. So this distributed database, it helps to in load balancing, you can say, or it is distributing the entire work into multiple sites. Now we have certain advantages of distributed systems. The first one is it helps us to modular development. Modular development means it is possible for us to add new computers or to add new sites and connect them to the distributed systems. Then the second one is one server failure will not affect the entire data set. That means in case a database of one site is lost and in case the one server it fails, it does not bring the entire system to crash. So these are the advantages of distributed database. Now the next topic is client server architecture of database system. The client server architecture was developed to deal with computing environments in which a large number of PCs or workstations, file servers, printers and database servers. This means that in this entire client server architecture, it explains how the client machine, it sends requests to the server with the help of the network, and how that server, it process the request and generate the response and pass it on back to the client. So this basically has three levels also. The first one is client, the second one is application server or web server, and the third one is database server. In this, the client means the end user, or which uses an application, or you can say a device like a computer, like a mobile with software or application. So client is a machine which is sending the request for some information to the database server. Then this data, when it goes from client to the application server, then this data from the client, it is validated, or you can say it is checked, and after checking it is transferred to the database layer. Then this layer, it transfers the data between client to the database server. And when this request goes to the database server, it takes the request from the application layer, then processes that request and generate the response and forward it back to the application layer, from where the application, or you can say the response, it is sent back to the client. So this is how the entire process is going on. Like the client is sending request to the application server, then this application server is forwarding the request to the database server, and then this database server, after receiving the input or after receiving the request from this application server, it processes it and returns the response to the application server, which in return the data to the client machine. Now there are two types of client server architecture. The first one is two-tier architecture and the second one is three-tier architecture. So we'll discuss about each one of them in detail. So let's discuss first two-tier architecture. Two-tier means it is having two levels. That is, one level is the client and the second level is the server, and the communication is occurring between this client and server. So the two-tier architecture is like a client-server application. There is a direct communication between the client and the server, and there is no intermediate between client and server. That means the application at the client end or at the client machine, it directly communicates with the database at the server side, and this connection, or you can say this interaction, is provided by the ODBC, or you can say the JDBC. ODBC is open database connectivity, which is providing the connectivity between the client and the server, and this server side, it is responsible for providing all the query processing and the transaction management. And on the client side, the user interfaces and application programs, they are present, and these are sending all the requests from the client to the server. So what happens is, the application that is present on the client side, as you can see in the diagram also, there is an application program that is running on the client side, and this client is communicating with the server with the help of network. So what happens, this application that is present on the client side, it establishes a connection with the server side in order to communicate with the database management system. So whatever the client generates a request, it passes to the application layer, and then this application layer, after checking or after validating, it passes on to the database server. So in this way, the entire communication is occurring between the two levels. Therefore, we are calling it as a two-tier. That is, one tier is client and the other tier is server. And in this case, the application server, it resides at the client side only. Now the two-tier architecture, it has advantages like maintenance and understanding of this two-tier architecture is simple, and it is compatible with the existing systems. Then, but it has a disadvantage that it gives poor performance when there are a large number of users. So if we add a large number of users, or for complex systems, it does not work properly. Then we have next is three-tier architecture. Three-tier means it is divided into three levels, you can say. First one is the client, the second one is the application server, and the third one is the database server. So the three-tier architecture, it adds an intermediate layer between the client and the database server. And this intermediate layer is called as the application server or the web server. And in this case, the client is not directly communicating with the server, because the client, it interacts with the application server, which further communicates with the database system, and then the query processing and transaction management and transaction processing, all these things, they take place. So this intermediate layer, it is acting as a medium, you can say, for exchanging or for interacting between the client and the server, and passing all the information between the server and the client. The advantages of three-tier architecture is the data integrity and security. Data integrity, it is maintained because there is a middle layer between the client and server. So any kind of data corruption or any kind of data duplication can be avoided, or you can say it can be removed. And second one is, there is a more security in three-tier architecture, because this client and server, it is not directly interacting with each other. So there is a less chances of any unauthorized data or access to any illegal data. But it has a disadvantage that there is a increased complexity of implementation, and there is a complexity of communication between the client and the server because of the presence of these middle layers. Now students, these are the important questions based on today's lecture, and they are asked many times in the university also. The first one is, you have to explain the difference between centralized and client server architecture. And the second one is, you have to explain what is data independence and how logical and physical data independence, they are different to each other. So students, we are now ending this lecture at this point, and in the next lecture we'll discuss about the data models and what are the different types of data models are present in database management system. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was a fruitful lesson for you all.